What's up, everybody? This is Storm Batiste.
And this is BA.
And welcome back to another episode of Made Men Podcast. Bringing you everything that we think every man should know, no matter if you're white, black,
skinny, or fat.
These are the facts and everything that we think every man of the 21st century should know about savings,
investing,
dating,
and everything else in between.
Welcome back to another episode. How's everybody doing?
I'm feeling, I ain't gonna lie to you, I ain't all the way here. It's a lot going on in the world right now.
Sound like you got a lot to talk about, so we definitely gonna get into that. Before we do, though, we do have two special guests on today. We really appreciate y'all coming on to the show. Can y'all just kind of introduce yourself, where you from, what you do, just a little bit about yourself?
Mark Scott, Brooklyn, New York. I work in HR for a tech company. And what was the last question? Sorry.
Oh, so where you from? You from New York?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised.
Yeah.
The real Bed-Stuy before coffee shops were invented.
Thanks.
Before coffee shops were invented.
Yeah.
So you was in Brooklyn before it got all gentrified and all these outsiders started coming in.
Exactly.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right, then my name is Mike Johnson. I'm born and raised in New York, the Bronx originally, and then moved upstate to Rockland County. Went to Hampton University. I currently work for Major League Baseball.
Hey, that's lit, man. Damn, two New York natives. This is rare.
Sir.
We had like two people that are actually from New York, like, and still in New York.
Yeah, this is the first time this happened. So, yeah.
That's kind of lit, man.
Well, welcome. Glad y'all could be here today. We really appreciate it.
Likewise.
To talk about, a lot to get through. So why don't you pop it off, Christian?
Yeah, definitely, man. So before we just kind of dive into it, man, I'm glad y'all doing all right. It's good to see that everybody okay. Look like I ain't got no haircuts either, so I feel a lot more comfortable now.
It's real out here.
Well, then we all on the same page right now. We all going through the struggle right now of being quarantined in the house. So that's good to see that everybody's good there. But anyway, we just want to start it off with some icebreakers right now. So what I've been doing lately is some polls on Instagram just to get some people's ideas or to see how people feel about certain situations. Most of them have to do with relationships because that is what we tend to talk about a lot. So what we're going to do is we're just going to ask you a question based off the poll that we had, see what your answer is, why you chose that answer, and then give you what the majority of people chose. See if you like everybody else, or see if, you're a little bit different.
All right, bet.
So first poll is they're best friends. So Shorty's best friends with their ex, but she says it's strictly platonic. Y'all going for it or not?
Mike, you go.
I would say personally, I'm not really a big fan of that, but at the same time, as a man, I'm not insecure where I'm gonna get upset about that, because I think if that's my girl, I gotta trust her. I knew what I was walking into prior. I feel like that would be something that she would tell me prior. So if it's something that I want to embark upon along with her, I would accept that. I'm not an insecure man myself, so it ain't gonna really bother me. I trust you if you tell me it's platonic, and I'll just leave it like that.
I'm gonna plus one that one. I agree with Mike. If you know your girl, especially real life situation. I've been with my girl so long. I know all her friends, but mainly I know her heart. I know her intent. So I'm gonna pick up on that. And if I'm doing my job, whatever my job is as a partner, that should be the least of my worries.
Talk that talk, man.
Hey, man.
Talk that talk. He said, if I know my job, if I'm doing my job well.
That was a real mature answer.
What was the answer that they gave you?
I forgot the numbers, but everybody said no.
it was like 98%.
It was like 98%. Everybody was like, nah.
I'll be interested to know how many of those people are single.
I can get you some
action.
Hey,
that's a point. That's a good point.
Let's run into the quote of the day real quick. And again, this is just a quote that we're gonna read off. You just want to get what y'all think about it. Real quick take on it before we get into the actual topic. You want to read? You want to do it?
You got it.
All right. So the quote of the day that we have is, "You can't separate peace from freedom because no one can be at peace unless he has freedom."
I'm gonna let you talk on that one first, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. I think that's fitting for the times that we're in now. Even prior to systematic oppression, just even if it's day to day at your job, with your family, putting up boundaries, even thinking freely. I think peace and calm, and a lot of us are like moving towards like what is peace, what is calm, meditation and things of that nature. But until you're free, and it could be from anything, it could be from vices, it could be from the present, the omnipresent. Until you get out of those shackles, there is no peace. I would agree. That's a powerful message.
I'm gonna second that and go a little deeper with that one. Just in my opinion, at least, you cannot, to me, be at peace with yourself if you feel that there's something holding you back. Whether that be when you say freedom, just not even making it about the situation just going on today, but whether that be with where you have your career aspirations, how you feel about things going forward in your life. I feel like you can't have peace until you feel like you're free from whatever that's holding you back. Now, bringing that to where we are in the climate that we're currently living in, with everything going on in society, not just today, but the past 400 plus years, that's real deep. I feel that with that being said, like this freedom thing, especially when it comes to African Americans, is hitting this pivotal point where I feel like things are really gonna start to make a change, hopefully, because that's the best thing you can do, is just be hopeful for the future. And I'm gonna just leave it with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that quote like just hits me different today. Like I picked out this quote, and it was because, and this was like yesterday, and I know it was fitting for the times, but I think that it hit me differently today because peace and the connection between peace and freedom is powerful, and I think that the way that I look at it and the way that it's moving today is that like I think finally, like I was saying earlier, that America has time and time again seen the veil pulled down as far as how Black people in this country have no peace because we have no type of freedoms. We don't own anything. We don't have any economic power, any real social capital. And I think that it's really just boiled over to today, like combination with the pandemic, just with the killings of Black men, Black women. Like, I think it's just boiled over to today. Like, people are sick and tired. Like, people can take so much, or anybody can just take so much, because at the end of the day, like, if you're living in a way that just on a day-to-day basis, you're just surviving, you'll never have that peace. And until I think things change, I think that this is going to stay around a little bit longer. Like, what's happened recently is going to be here a little bit longer. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, man, y'all honestly cover everything. I don't have anything else really to contribute. But unless you are free, you can never really be at peace mentally. And that's what we're currently fighting for right now, just to have that freedom to do the same things that everybody else can do based off what they're saying. This is a country of equality where we all have the same rights, but we don't. And we don't. And we aren't really free. It's just like a false sense of freedom that they've given us, a false sense of peace that we have. And we've seen it 6 years ago when this happened. Now it's just everybody was hype about that, kind of died down. Now we're back here again as if 6 years didn't happen. It's just a repeated process. And so there is no freedom. Like you said, it's at a tipping point right now. People are just sick of the same exact thing happening. And I don't want to get too, because I want to go into the topic that we're going to talk about. But yeah, I totally agree with the quote. You can't truly have peace unless you're free. But I appreciate y'all giving us y'all's take on that. I like the fact that y'all really each dove and took a different angle with that, because I can already tell it's going to be a good topic. What we kind of wanted to address today and mainly focus on, we do know there's a lot going on right now in the community and the economy, especially with Black people. So we did want to talk today specifically about Black people, but more so in terms of trauma in Black men, because Black men are the ones that are going through, we're the ones that are being killed. A majority of the time in these killings, we are the ones being targeted, and we deal with a lot of stuff that we have to hold in for the most part, because we're not allowed to express those feelings. We're not allowed to feel those and show weakness just because of societal norms and just being black. Sometimes people just look at you like you're weaker or like you're a sissy or something like that. So I want to discuss it. I want to talk about black trauma. So the first thing that we're going to get into, and I appreciate Mark, when we spoke to you before we jumped on the call, he actually had this whole Venn diagram that he came up with that was super fucking dope. If you could just kind of go into the diagram that you put together, kind of catch us all up to speed on, how you put it together. I know you talked about being prideful, ashamed, and I'll just kind of let you take it from there, and then we'll all go through our own different diagrams that we put together.
Yeah, I appreciate that. They reached out to me talking about, like my upbringing and, the black experience. And I told them pretty much my upbringing, being from Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, but also going to private school in Brooklyn Heights. So that was basically the duality of the black experience, right? It's the Venn diagram of being one side being extremely prideful, 100% prideful, your authentic self, and on the other side being shameful, or in our community we call it selling out. But most of us are in the middle of that Venn diagram, if you could picture that in your mind. And in the middle is more so of our corporate self, or our, unassuming self, non-threatening self. We just kind of,
politically correct. So
right. Most of us do a good job. And I say most of us do a good job. And the question is it a good job or is it not? That's a question of itself. But we do a good job of staying within the middle, because we don't want to go too far left, too far right, too far up, too far down. And a lot of it is passed on to us, and that's the Venn diagram part. Like, I think a lot of it has to do with the micro traumas. Like, you don't have to see a black person get killed in front of you to know, like, to still go through trauma, right? Like, you don't have to see these extreme things. And I think that's what a lot of white folks think. It's just like, well, we're not lynching you all. Like, what's the big deal? And it's like, they don't understand, like, there's micro traumas. Like, there's 100 of micro traumas that may equal just one of these large life sentences in jail things that they think that, like, us, the four of us, I can already tell, like, we have a privilege of knowing how to talk and knowing how to mingle and rub shoulders with folks. So that's pretty much how I like the reason I came up with that Venn diagram thing, because, like, that's how I learn, with, like, visual aids type of thing. So I think that's the easiest way to explain, like, the black experience in America. But I'm also only speaking for myself.
Where do you stand on that diagram? You said in the middle. We all have our own walks of life. So where are you in that? If you could just, like, give us something quick on that.
Definitely, it's funny. I'm definitely in the middle of, like, I have a corporate side. Like, I'm sure the listeners could. Right. I'm sure the listeners could relate. Like, when you were young and you had the call ID and your mom asked you, who's that calling? And it's like a bill collector or someone important, and she changed her voice. I feel like most of us, especially, like, literally, if you have a job that deals with people outside of your race, which that's what we live in New York, that's what it is. Or you live in America, that's what it is. Like, we're putting on, like, the way I email is not the way me and Brian talk on the side. Like, but I'm gonna email. I'm gonna dress that up. So I'm definitely in the middle. I lean more to trying to get to my authentic self. Like, I'm still gonna dress how I dress. I'm still gonna talk how I talk. But I'm still in this cage just like everyone else. I'm sorry, not everyone else, because I can't speak for everybody. But I'm in the cage that I think is acceptable, and I think I'm gonna be accepted, and I think I'm gonna be non-threatening. Like, we all have that. We could talk as tough as we want, but we're all trying to be accepted outside of our race. And I think true freedom and true authenticity is being who you are, 100% unfiltered and raw.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man. What about you? What you got, buddy?
So I'm more of a visual person, just like Mark. I didn't necessarily do, like, the two actual circles with the middle. I just, like, literally just broke my little piece of paper up, to like kind of go off of that. Similar to you, Mark, I based it off of like how I am as a person versus how I am when I'm at the office. Just like you guys said, I'm pretty sure everybody does who is a person of color, not just black, but just because we're all black here, I feel like we do it. Where it's something along the lines of like you reiterated, Mark, you have to put on as a, I would say like the white voice.
Code switching.
Huh?
Code switching.
That's the great way to look at it. Growing up, my dad will always say, Mike, whenever you're in a situation, think of it like those old televisions that was always at your grandma's house where you didn't have a remote, but you actually had to walk up and actually turn the channel. So he says that whenever you go into a new environment, you got to learn how to turn that channel, turn into a different type of mic, so that way you're able to move in that situation with the least amount of resistance, being that you are a black man. So when I am at the office, granted that I work for Major League Baseball, and the actual office I do work at is very lenient with how we have to dress. So I can come in with a T-shirt and jeans on, or a hoodie on and a hat. I don't necessarily have to be corporate wearing a button up and slacks all the time. However, one thing I don't do is I don't sag my pants while I'm at the office. I don't try to, even though there are other black people there, I don't say like, yo, what up, Mike? You know, like I don't say like those kind of vernacular, because I understand that majority of the people I work with don't look like me, and they are listening to what I say and how I react to different situations.
It might slip out. It might slip out.
You know, like when we walk into the caf and I know that nobody's around me, I'm not going to confirm nor deny that information.
Yeah.
It slipped
It's
out.
a possibility.
It's
You know, it's a possibility.
I looked around like, oh, did anybody hear me say that?
Nah, see, I can't confirm nor deny that information at this time. That's what I can't do. I'm a couple weeks behind because we haven't had to be in the office for a couple weeks. So my memory of what's going on, I already know when I go back into the office, I got to change my password because I know it's over for me. It's over.
This man is hilarious, bro.
But going back to the topic, I think that just me being myself, coming from New York, I know that like I will always have on my New York fitteds, my gray hoodie, a white T-shirt, whether it be some clean Air Force Ones or a pair of Timbs. Yeah, we don't even, I call them butters. I don't know where everybody else call them, but I know being from New York.
New York.
Mark, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We call them butters. Like
Butters
I know
on the trucks.
I'm just saying, Mark, you know how I go. Yo, you got on a clean pair of butters. Like I heard you, copy. Like see that type of vernacular. Like I know I can't really use when I'm in the office. When I'm talking to my superiors, my supervisors and whatnot, I just, yes sir, no sir, got you right away, sir. Yes ma'am, no ma'am. I got you right away, man. Like I automatically go back into that code where like, you know, always be very polite when you're talking to them. Look them right in the eye. Make sure that you're seen, but you're not necessarily heard all the time. Vice versa. And I know it sounds very childish, but that's how you really got to move in corporate America. Make sure that your actions speak louder than words. Make sure that you're seen in a positive light. You don't always want to seem in negative. I always try to have a smile on my face. And things like that. But I will say this. It was one time where I had to check somebody at the office, and it wasn't his fault, but it was like he came over real ignorant. So I just gave him the opportunity to
Black guy or white guy?
Huh?
Was it a black guy or white guy?
Well, it was the latter. So
Gotcha.
I'll tell you the story because it's simple. I was sitting next to a woman. She's white. She has an Italian last name. The dude comes over and he starts talking to her. They'll start talking about their last names and what exactly it means. She's like, yeah, my last name is, I can't pronounce it. It was Italian, but it pretty much means like south of Sicily. And then his last name meant that he came from like, I think it was, I can't remember off the top of my head, to be honest with you. But it was just more along the lines of, he was like, oh, that's great that your name means south of Sicily based off of your last name. And then he was like, well, my last name means this. And because I was sitting right next to him, he literally said to me, Mike, what does your last name mean?
You walked into that one.
But I promise you guys, like, I literally just went like this. I took a calm breath and I said, All right, so how much time do you actually have for this conversation?
Right.
And he just didn't he didn't comprehend exactly what I was saying. So the woman was like, dude, why the fuck would you ask Mike that? Like, do you she was like, this got really, really awkward. And I just was literally with a straight face. I said, so how much time do you really have for this conversation? I can give you the short abbreviated version, or I can give you the long version. And he said, well, I got to go get my Uber, so can I just get the short version? I said, absolutely. So check this out. People that were probably around your skin complexion came to Africa, kidnapped us, took us, brought us across the sea, called the Mid-Slave Trans Union. And as soon as they did that, they took our names, took everything that we had, took our family away from each other, stripped us of everything that we had, beat us to death so that way we were mentally weak but physically strong, and then along the lines of separated us so that way we couldn't do anything, and gave us their last name based off of how we were owned by that exact as we were seen as property. And he just had a red face. He's like, oh, my Uber's here. And I was just like, bro, I literally broke that down in 30 seconds. You said your Uber's 5 minutes. I got time to talk to you if you want to have this conversation.
You gotta catch me.
Nah, my Uber's here. And then the girl who was sitting next to me, she just said, I'm so sorry. I was like, listen, it's ignorance. It's not ignorance to the point where you're trying to be ignorant, but it's ignorance to the point that your privilege never made you think about asking that question prior to you asking it. Mm-hmm. But I had to remember that when in that middle gap, talking about you having to be corporate America, I can't just literally go off and start spazzing on him saying like, yo, why would you ask me that question, making a scene? I just simply said, let me educate this dude real quick, but in a nice, elegant way where I can get my point across very sternly so that he don't ask a dumb question like that again to somebody else who may or may not react the same way as well. So that little story, going back to the Venn diagram, it keeps me in that. That's how I come about it. Like, I gotta remember that yes, I am a black man. Everything I do is seen as a threat, no matter what it is. I could be going to Starbucks to get me a coffee, and it led to brothers being arrested in Philadelphia. I could be doing the most simplest stuff and could be seen as a threat. Just recently with Ahmaud Arbery, he's just jogging down to get a workout and he's seen as a threat for some reason. It's ridiculous how just because based off of the color of my skin, no matter what I do, I'm seen as a threat. So my middle walk of life is to just try to be in a situation with the least amount of resistance while still understanding that at the end of the day, Mike, you are a black man. I will go and help anybody who's black. If I know them, even if I don't know them, when I'm in the middle of the street, I say this all the time. I got food or I'm near McDonald's or anything and I see a homeless man, yo, what you want? I go buy it for you. I go buy you the food when I can. I ain't going to say I do it for every homeless man. Depends on where my funds is at the time. But it is, I got responsibilities as a man. So that's just something that, that's my walk of life.
Appreciate you sharing that, man. I
think
it's really important to just hear that from everybody, just because it's so different and it switches completely from person to person. I know yours is probably completely different from both of theirs. Did you have, because I know you took some time to do it as well.
Yeah. So mine is, I think growing up, I was probably on the side of the spectrum where I was militant black, very, very prideful. And I think that was the way that I was raised. And I also grew up on the south side of Chicago. So it's not really diverse. So I'm just around black people 24/7. And my parents made a point to make sure I knew who I was and where I came from. So all the documentaries, every MLK holiday, I couldn't watch TV. Black history, I couldn't watch TV unless it was related to something about Black history, Black History Month. I'm going to church, we have a Black History service, they made a point to make sure I understood what my lineage was and how I should be prideful about it. Now, I would say as I got older and I started to go into other communities, especially college, that's when I had to understand, I had to find some type of middle ground, right? Because, coming from the South Side, it's just, and growing up around all black people, what happens is yes, you're super prideful, but at the same time, you just don't trust white folks because you don't know how to interact with them either. So people around you tell you like never trust a white person. Like they always got it out for us. And also like since I've never been around them, I don't even know how to communicate with you because I'm gonna automatically assume that we have nothing in common. So there is no conversation to be had. So it's just like when I went to college, that was when I started to figure out how to maneuver in their world. And that's how I got to the middle today. So in the middle of the Venn diagram. So I think that, you know, like you all said, like being in the middle of that Venn diagram is really important because I look at it like when I became a lot more educated, when I went to college about the way white people move, I started to look at them differently, right? I started to look at it as a learning tool. Like I wanted to use them as a learning tool rather than trying to say like, you know, we have nothing in common. It's kind of like you have to move like a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? So really just trying to understand like how much they don't know and what I don't know about them, but also understanding the way that, you know, they live, like the way their family uses money, the way that they look at money, period. Like just the systems that they have in place that ensure like they're good and they're set up for life. And in doing that and asking them these questions, I think that's how I got closer to the middle. So I would oftentimes I mock them with their mannerisms, like as far as saying awesome. Like I never said awesome until I got into the real world.
You're crushing it.
Like awesome, like bro, it don't even sound right coming out my mouth straight up. And like little shit like that, like really like talking about. I even had to like start learning the things that they do, like as far as like watching the Netflix shows, like, you know, what is it, 30 Day Fiance? Hate it, but you know, like this is a talk, 90 Day, whatever. But also just understanding like these are the things that you kind of have to assimilate to in order to be a part of that conversation. So then it's like this internal battle as far as like, am I selling out right now because I'm trying to fit in with them? But you remember that, you know, you're doing this because you don't need them, but you want to use them as a tool to really just educate yourself as far as like, how do you create, you know, a solid foundation for yourself? How do you create wealth for future generations? Because I look at every job that I've had as more of a learning experience rather than just a job, right? So meaning that everybody around me, I work with mostly white people, like since I've started working, but all of them have some type of privilege that you can learn from. Like if it's not them, it's probably a family member that you can talk to or somebody else that does something really, really interesting that you can learn from. So that middle is really like the way that I gain trust from within that community, right? So really like I said, mimicking their mannerisms, like being interested in the things that they're also interested in, but also understanding that, you know, I'm basically trying to learn these things so I can create resources for my people, so I can be back on that other side of the Venn diagram to where it's like I can be happily militant, I can be financially independent, I can do whatever I want to do, right? So it's just like maneuvering corporate America, but always keeping in mind that, you know, the ultimate goal is like to be Robin Hood for the most part. So yeah, that's how I kind of look at it. And that's why I think it's always safer to, you know, always stay in the middle, because I can never be ashamed. I can never be on that ashamed spectrum, even though I had a mini crisis when I first started working. I'm like, I'm doing things and saying things that I usually don't say on a regular. Am I selling out? But I think that I've been able to learn how to be in the middle and also like stay a little bit more on that super, super prideful, super militant side, like always keeping that in the back of my mind.
Cool, man.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, mine was actually kind of similar to the part where you.
I got a little mad. Sorry, I got a little mad when you said it.
Yeah. So mine is very different, I guess, from everybody else's, just because I grew up kind of in a multicultural household. I did have that moment like Bryant where I felt like kind of like a sellout, and I'll just tell y'all about it real quick. So where I feel like I've been on this Venn diagram is kind of in the middle part, but also like on the ashamed part as well, which it sucks to say, but like that's kind of like been my walk of life, just because I did grow up, you know, with a white father. I did grow with white siblings. I did go to all white school. I was one of 6 black people in my white school, all the way from elementary school to the end of middle school. It was nothing but white and just those few black people. And so, yeah, man, I was taught very differently. I was taught so differently in to the point to where when I went and got in contact with other black people, I couldn't even have a conversation with them. It was never anything to talk about. I was looked at as like whitewashed or like a sellout or like, oh, you go to private school with them white kids and stuff, like, because I would use correct grammar or what, you know, society says correct grammar. I would speak like I was educated. I would read it, and it came off as if I was being pompous or like I felt like I was better than them. At the time, I didn't even realize like that's how it came off. I was just thinking like, this is
who I am.
Yeah, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that it was any different. And so at that point, I almost kind of put black people on the back burner. Like I was like, all right, well, I mean, they black and I'm black, but we don't have nothing to talk about. Black girls, boy, they used to dub me so hard. It was crazy, bro. I had no luck with black women at all. And so I didn't even like black women up until middle school, bro. I only liked white women up until middle school, bro. And my mom actually kind of brought me back full circle where she was like, damn, so you wouldn't date somebody that looks like your mom? And I was like,
Oh, hey, mom always hit you with the real talk when you need it. Mom always hit you like, what you doing? You moving funny out here.
My mom brought it full circle for me. So that's when stuff started getting real. I was in the house, like sometimes just because of who I grew up with, we would go to like these holiday events like Easter and Christmas. Everybody was white. Everybody would look a certain way, talk a certain way. And so sometimes I feel like I wasn't like, you know, I wasn't good enough. I didn't speak, you know, very well and do everything this way, say awesome and good job and talk about the latest 90-day fiance, like shit that I really wasn't that interested in, but was kind of forced to be interested in because that was my environment. Like when I was in school, all the white people would be like, oh, he raps and he plays like sports. If you know me, I can't rap for shit. And like sports was not my thing in middle school. I don't know if y'all saw the picture I got on my Instagram. I had the little goggles and I was not that big. Yeah. And so it was just like, okay, damn, because I'm black now I got to be this person that I'm really not. And so I really felt like ashamed. I was like, damn, why is this so hard for me? And like I would go to other black people in school and they would either look down on me or they wouldn't even have shit to talk to me about. So it was like I ain't had nobody to go to. My brother, like, it was one person, but me and him, we were like on a different chapter at that time. We weren't really like speaking like that. And we weren't really close to have those conversations. And so my eyes began to open finally when I was
You wasn't woke.
I wasn't woke.
Okay.
And so I began to wake up finally when my parents, they finally let us go to like public school my freshman year. Man, when I feel like that was my first time meeting black people for real. Like knowing black people. Freshman year in high school, man. I get out there, man. First of all, ain't none of the dudes like me because all the females was all this when I had made my little, you know, came up a little bit. The glow up, you know, they talk about that. Man, got rid of the glass, had the contacts in. So, you know, they was checking for the kids. So all the females was all in my face. I was like, damn, she fine as shit. She fine as shit. They got Spanish. They got black. They got like everything out here other than white. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put white people in the background now. I had to learn like the slang. I had to learn how to fight. I had to learn how to essentially be black, if that's what they call it. Because I was still like that whitewashed kid. So I really feel like that freshman year transition really kind of helped me out. And that really kind of got me where I am today. In the middle, sometimes like because of my situation, I do come from a multicultural household. I have an entire white side. I have an entire black side. So sometimes I feel like if I speak out on these issues, it might kind of separate me and my family a little bit. So I'm afraid to do that. And then sometimes when I don't speak about it, I feel like, damn, I'm selling out on my fucking coach, like me. I'm like, and I feel like I shouldn't even have I shouldn't even be like hesitant about this because this is me. I could have been the person shot, whether they agree with it or believe it or not. That could have been me. And so it's really hard, like, and it puts me in a really awkward situation. They don't even address this like at my job. That's kind of where I stand in my.
So I guess just to like talk more about like the Venn diagram, like. Christian just spoke on just like the microaggression, I guess not the microaggressions, but the micro traumas that come along with even coming into your own, right? So, or getting into the middle of that Venn diagram, right? So can you all like speak to just some of maybe the micro traumas that you all have experienced and getting and finding that middle and maintaining that balance in the middle?
I guess I'll start first. The micro. Things I would say that becoming politically correct, like when and how to talk, I would say that's one thing that from a micro, that was something I really had to pick up and learn very fastly. Just off the, I would say as an example, just understanding that, because I do have white friends, so understanding that everything that they do is not the same that I do. Even though we might have grew up together, I understand that it's not the same. A prime example is that when I was younger and very ignorant to the fact, I had like a friend over, I had a bunch of friends over. One of them just so happened to be white, and we was all talking. I want to say that we was about either 12 or 13, and we was just like blatantly throwing around like the N-word. Like, it's just us. I'm not gonna say I didn't see color because that's obvious BS, but like that was my boy. I grew up with him. It was no issue. And my dad overheard him saying the N-word referring to like me, and I was joking about it. Like, I didn't think nothing of it. And then they once everybody left, he like really sat me down and like reprimanded me about that, because he was like, you don't ever. And honestly, I'm giving you like the summed up version, because if you yeah, so we just going. I just had like a little flashback, so I apologize.
Thanks.
Huh?
You start shaking over there, huh?
Yeah, you see the flashback, like you just see me just like yeah, like he reprimanded me about that. And it was just like one of those like microaggressions of just allowing somebody to call you out your name, especially that, being that he was white. Now he understands that dude was 13 as well, so he might not have understood it, but he definitely had me call my boy back over the next day and sat him down to let him know, like, hey man, like, look, I overheard y'all talking.
Your fucking life.
He said a little bit, the way he was talking to me when the doors was closed and how he presented it to my mans, it was two different fathers at the time, right? But yeah, that was a micro that I had when I was very young. And to this day, I don't let anybody even try to say it. Not because my dad reprimanded me, but because I educated myself on not just that, but just a plethora of different things about the Black community and the Black struggle that we had to deal with in our time here in the States, coming to the States, the whole thing. So once that happened, I pretty much like, I'll check somebody if you decide to call me outside of my name. Within reason, because if it's corporate, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just go to HR.
I'm just going to reach out to HR.
Yo, speaking of HR, what you got, Mark?
That was a good story, Mike. But
appreciate it. We all had it. Yeah, that's why.
It's funny. I'm gonna kind of use your story because it reminded me of something. So like when we talk about micro traumas, right? Like I said, I went to private school, but I lived in the hood. I went to private school, maybe kindergarten to up to high school. I can never remember a time I was invited white folks to my house, and they were in my class. So I say that to say, obviously, our parents, because our parents are making these decisions for us, right? Who you go with, who you friends with. It was obvious, it had to be, as we adults, I'm 30 years old. It's obvious that they knew where the line was drawn. Yeah, y'all could play together. Y'all could be on the dodgeball team, the basketball team, the debate team, the this team, the that team. Y'all could integrate in class. But once the bell rings at 2:45, we go our separate ways. I took my ass on the bus with my parents or drove back to my zip code, and they went to their zip code. And their zip code was the zip code where the school was. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm saying zip code because the people that listen to this, it may not be in New York or Brooklyn or the Bronx, but you could relate.
It works the same way.
Exactly. So that's one thing about race for micro trauma. Another thing, just more so how we deal with, how it's for Black men on this, how we deal with women. Like my parents got divorced when I was 9 or 10, but then they became closer friends when they got divorced. So my interaction with women was kind of like friend over lover, for lack of a better term, So that was a micro trauma. Like when anyone that dealt with divorce, like the kids are affected the most because you don't one is you don't really know what that means per se. You see, like, your parents are moving out. Now we have two places to go. So you start building these things. Black men, we already have a lot of insecurities with ourselves.
Mm.
We need to treat like black women better. But a lot of times we don't know any better to treat them better. And we're learning as we go, not to make an excuse for us. And just, again, I'm bringing back that call ID situation. And just like, we know what to do and what to say to black folks. And we get it from our parents because that's their way of trying to protect us, right? Like, you see a white person, like, you be polite, and that's the only way you're going to get hired. Wear a suit and tie for the interview. Like, make sure you have everything ready for this. It's all to get into the white person's world. I'm not even going to say white men, because I think a lot of times, like, white women get off the hook for some reason.
Always.
Right. It's always, white men. It's like, why we
White women be in the hood teaching us.
White women are the main white liberals that vote for Bernie Sanders and go to Travis Scott concerts. So we put our guard down, and they listen to Lizzo and they listen to Beyonce. So we think they're cool. Like, she's cool, but she's just as bad because she wants to feed us welfare checks and she wants to feed us government assistance so we can stay in the hood. But sorry, I just went on a little rant on the white women part. But
you said Molly. Call them Karen, man. They hate it.
Karen, that's the word.
Karen, I definitely thought about Karen.
Karen, man. That's what they call them.
Yeah, I mean, with the traumas that I've experienced, I think it was a few like pivotal moments in my life to where I was just like, yo, this really fucked me up. I think it was the first one was when I was in high school. I went to 3 different high schools, and the second one was a private all-boy Catholic school, right? And this was actually my first time that I was actually in a white person's world, because it was a bunch of white boys, basically white men. Most of the majority of the teachers were white men, and I think that being an athlete as well, like, I think that was the first kind of trauma, because it's just like they'll say it blatantly, like, you're fast because you're black, right? Or how you able, like, they'll blatantly like tell me that while I'm in football practice.
I can attest.
And I think that one of the like moments that like kind of like broke, like almost, I'm not saying I could never say it broke me, but it almost broke me. It was a day we were all in practice, and at that point in time in high school, I didn't really care about a lot, but I just cared about football, right? Loved going to football practice. But it was this one day that one of the other players, and this was another black player, but he was the token one, right? I was not. Like, the coaches hated me because I was always talking shit. I never came to practice on time. Like, I was there, but I wasn't there. And the token black kid had he left his shoulder pads at home or some shit like that, right? So the white coach was like, "Brian, come here." I was like, "All right, what up?" He was like, "Take your shoulder pads off and give it to him." I was like, "Huh?" He was like, "Take your shoulder pads off and give it to him." I was like, "Why?" He was like, "Because like he left his shoulder pads off." I was like, what's that got to do with me?
Right.
So that was one of the moments where I was just like, I could take my shoulder pads off right now and have my pride broken, or I can like just walk out of practice. And so I did the latter, and I just walked out of practice because I was just like, you're not about to, like, that's not, you're trying to break me down, because you wouldn't do that to anybody else. Because even though I don't come to practice on time, like, every time I'm with the scout team, every time I'm on the field, like, I do something. Like, I make shit happen. So you're not about to try to break me. It's like trying to break a slave. That's how I kind of like registered in my head.
When you said that about the shoulder pads, that's the first thing I said. That's some plantation type stuff, right?
It's just like, why me? Why did you pick me out of everybody? Right. Like, why didn't you pick the kicker, like, or the punter? Like, come on, like
anyone.
Like, kicker don't even need, like, what a kicker needs shoulder pads in practice
they
for?
shit on the kicker all the
time. The other time was just because I was really quiet for the most part growing up. I think that also a part of that assimilation, or like trying to like get in the middle. I think that I would always feel very uncomfortable around white people, to where like they'll be talking and I just wouldn't say anything. Like, and then I would be in my head thinking about like, I need to say something. I need to say something. I need to say something. And nothing of it, I never said anything because I was so uncomfortable and I could not relate to the topics that they were discussing. So it was just kind of like I was just in my own head, and I would feel shitty afterwards. Like, damn, like they probably think I'm a threat. They probably will not fuck with me after this. And it's just like that was like something that I've gotten way better with. But like when I first started working and I had to go to lunch with them and shit like that, I used to dread that shit because I know like the shit you're about to be talking about, it can't relate. It's not going to be of any interest to me. And I always feel like I have to make you feel comfortable because I know the way that I look and I'm very intimidating. So it's just like, I have to take the time to really like make you feel comfortable. And that was always something that I struggled with when I first started working. So thank you for sharing that, Mark and Mike. So we got just a few questions for y'all. We just gonna wrap up from there, all right?
All right.
So the first one is, and we're gonna send this to you first, Mark. So with all the events that's going on today, I think that since this is just a repeat of what happened 6 years ago, like what's the first emotion you feel when you hear a black man has been shot?
First off, like rest in peace to George Floyd and all the rest of it, the brothers and sisters. It's just for me, I'm gonna give you a longer answer. Sorry. I feel like I'm always just like frustrated. Just for those that seen like the video of like the Amy Cooper of the world. Like obviously she didn't shoot a black man, no one died, so I'm not gonna compare both stories. But I've always seen those type of things because it was closer to me. Like that can happen every day. When a black person gets shot, it's kind of like just like a bad movie every time you hear it. It's just like, when are we, no matter what we do, we take 2 steps forward, we take 10 steps back. It's just sad. Like this is probably the saddest I've been. I'm not sure, maybe it was like a mixture of like the coronavirus being on lockdown, but this one's been the saddest / angriest I've been, to the point of like I'm just calling out white folks because I see a lot of social media posts and like, we need to do better, but they haven't done anything for us. Like and I'm not going to get into like the political aspect of this. I don't vote. So, one of those things, like if you don't vote, you can't speak on it. I would just say, for white folks, if you're listening or not, like if you say you're my ally, when I'm not in the room, you need to be my ally.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's easy for you to say you my ally because you have 4 black friends, or you listen to this, or you watch LeBron James play. But when you're sitting at the dinner table with your white family and some racist shit goes down, that's when you need to be my ally, because I can't get into that room, nor do I want to be in that room.
Okay.
So
kind of like sadness and a lot of frustration, especially now versus.
Oh yeah. It's this shit changed me. Like all the other ones, I'm not saying the other ones didn't change me. I remember, I'm from New York, Mike. I know you remember Amadou Diallo got shot 41 times. I remember my dad on the phone with his coworkers, like damn near crying about that shit. This is in like 99, 2000.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point now where it's just like, one is really strive for my purpose, and that's getting off the plantation, which is white corporate America. And 2 is holding people accountable. It's just like, if you want to borrow $5 and I say I got you next week I should have it, or have an excuse why I don't have it. Same thing with allyship. You say you down for me, you got to be down for me when it's inconvenient for you. You feel me?
And Mike, what you got?
To answer that question, I'm not sad at all. I'm very frustrated and I'm very angry that this keeps happening and we keep saying that we're going to change and nothing changes. And I'm just getting to the point where I'm like, yo, you've done this peaceful protesting. This isn't working. And I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, the justice system was never made for us. So we have to take justice into our own hands. And I know that sounds very, very like to the right with how things are going, but just seeing my brothers and my sisters killed, and then the worst that happens is that they're put on administrative leave, which for people who don't or may not know, you're still paid for that. They just tell you don't come to work. That's it. Mm-hmm. So I'm very, very frustrated with everything that's going on, and I think that the best solution is going to be that we start to take these situations into our own hands for us to resolve ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the shit hurts, and like Mark, like this one, like it's probably because of the pandemic. So I think that right now what's happening is with me, I think that, it's actually like it continues to, in some sort of way, motivate me. Like Mark, you said, to get off that plantation, but also just to create for my people, essentially. Like, I think that it's also like good to talk about it, because I usually don't talk about these things. Like I usually keep it bottled up, which is why like I'm usually angry anytime I see any of these headlines. But my therapist like really like forces me to talk about it, which I appreciate, because she'll be like, she even told me like last week, she's like, when something like this happens, like you usually don't have a lot to say. So that means you have you want to speak on this, but you don't know what to say, or like you're just bottling up your emotion. So I think that like this one hit me. These few deaths have hit me a little bit harder, but I also just use it as motivation to continue to create resources for my people. Like I got a lot of stuff that I want to do, and it's for my family, but it benefits all of us. So yeah, it's just something that, you use it, it makes you sad, but you also have to turn that sadness or that anger into like motivation. Like it has to fuel the fire.
Yeah, and I'll make mine really quick. It's like you said, it's a combination of sad and frustration. It's just like it happened, and now it's happening again. And now I feel like for some reason this time was just more real. Like for me, this is when I really like felt it. This last death was just like, it really hit me. And then because like once you saw this one, y'all know how the pigeonhole is on Instagram. Once you get on there, you see one video links to another one. I'm starting to see all these other killings and shootings and stuff that I didn't even know existed. And so it's just like, it's almost like anger. And what it's leading me to is I want to answer to fix the problem. When you want to fix a problem, you need an answer. You look for the solution. Nobody has that answer or that solution right now. I just hear a bunch of different stuff coming from a bunch of different people. Mm-hmm. Some people say they want to protest. Some people say they want to shoot. Some people say, just pray, or whatever you want to do. Like I'm looking for the right answer, or the answer that we all can move on together. And I can't find that. And so it's just frustrating to just see the same things over and over and over and people not understand.
But I guess just to kind of like wrap this up, the last question that I have for y'all, and Mike, you actually like starting to get into it. Like, what are you doing just as a Black man to take care of yourself in times like this, and even to deal with your other traumas that you may have had?
All right. So one of the first things is that I'm starting to communicate more with not just my friends and family, but just like seeking out, to go to therapy. That's first and foremost. I think that's good. I definitely started to build my relationship with God a lot more. Definitely been praying more to try to find guidance. And I recently registered to get my gun license.
Congratulations, Kane.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Just had to go do my fingerprints last weekend. So, just waiting for them to really like push it through. Thank God I don't live in New York anymore. I live in Jersey, so I could get it a lot quicker than I can. It's automatically 6 months when you're in New York. But I think it's about 30 days here in Jersey for me to actually get my license. Unfortunately, it's not a concealed carry, because I just feel like at this point that where everything is going, the best thing for us to do is to be able to protect ourselves. And that hands up, don't shoot doesn't work when they have their guns pointed at you. They're not going to listen when they're in a position of power. Mm-hmm. So I feel that if we're on even grounds, at least I feel like I have a good chance of making it out.
Got you.
It's powerful, man.
Mark, go ahead.
For me, just disconnecting with people that don't matter, and connecting closer with people that matter. That's, my partner, Black woman, my parents, um, Black folks. Like, I kind of like not veered off, but like in corporate America, like you mingle with all these different people and races and stuff, and that's cool. But at a time like this, white folks, you can't tell me how to feel right now and that you're sorry. And then I need to speak to people that have been through it and know people that have been through it. And just like quit my job. Honestly, I can't call a person a sellout when I'm still trading 5 for 2 for a white person's dream. I just can't do it. I can no longer do it. I have to invest in myself.
Shit, if you quit right now, you might actually be making more. They're getting $1,200 a week on
that's about to be a wrap.
Yeah, you look at almost 5 that I mean, that's not the worst idea I've heard. So I'm just saying, validating your point.
It's not even. I'd rather be broke at this point.
I can't confirm that amount. I can't.
Right.
I guess as well. I guess kind of the opposite of what you said a little bit, Mark. Like, I will be okay. Like, if some of my my white counterparts would just be like, at least show that they see, even if they can't necessarily relate to me or do anything to help me, that would help. I don't expect them to have the right answer. Like, I don't expect them to know what to say. I do expect them to not pretend that this is not happening or to pretend like this does not exist. Like, so anything will help. I'm doing a lot of working out now. I was being a bum, so I'm working out a little bit more now. I'm talking to people that's like just been people that are willing to listen. Also trying to pray more too. Talking to a lot of my women friends. They keep expressing how much they love Black men and how much they are there to support. And they're the ones on the front lines, to be honest. That protest I went by was all women, like for the most part, Black women. So yeah, just leaning on my family as well. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, similar to everybody else, the thing number one is just God. Like, all praise is due to the Most High. Like, I got a roof over my head. I got food on the table. Family is safe. Family is healthy. And then, just I pray every day. Every morning I get up, that's the first thing I do. And what I challenge like a lot of people to do is before you even pick up your phone, like just give praise, like just do that, because that phone. Think about it like this: if you pick up your phone as soon as you wake up in the morning, that can determine the way your whole day is going to go. Because especially right now. So before you even pick up your phone, like if you are a spiritual person, if you believe in a higher power, like pray to whoever your higher power is. The second thing is really just relationships, like y'all said. Definitely I've gotten closer with my family since this quarantine has started. We talk every Wednesday. We have a check-in out in Chicago, so we check in. And the relationship I have with my therapist, like she's been like amazing as far as like helping me through this and like helping me also like figure out how things that have happened to me in the past affect me to this day still. So a lot of just self-development and just making sure like I'm surrounding myself with a strong support system, especially during these times, because it's a lot of darkness in the world. And that leads me to my third point, and that's really just always counting my small W's. The thing about it is I think that just humans, like we're just always wired to always think that we need to always achieve this big win, right? When in some situations, you just got to take the small W's and that is the silver lining out of every situation, no matter how bad it is. And that's something that I think I've been raised to do that. Like my mom always told me, like, it ain't never that bad. It ain't never that bad, I promise. And if you take that approach just in the way you live your everyday life, like you always find a W from every day. No matter how bad your day was, it's always something that you could take away from it. And always something you could be excited about and say, like, I did that today.
It's true. Cool, man. Appreciate that. Both of y'all were very insightful. That Venn diagram was fucking spectacular. And Mike, like, I love the intake, man. I love the insight and the stories that you got, man. You definitely have some very interesting, relatable stories, because we all got that story where the one white person tried to say the N-word and he was just cool with it. And we had a really
I appreciate you.
we had that, but sure.
Once again, this is Storm Batiste.
And this is BA.
And this is another episode of Made Men Podcast. bringing you everything that we think every man should know, no matter if you're white, black.
Skinny or fat.
These are the facts.
Facts.
And everything every man of the 21st century should know about savings,
Investment.
dating,
And everything else in between.
If you enjoyed the podcast, y'all know what to do.